Hello friends, welcome to my channel, Viktor George Leather Goods, and today I've got a fun tutorial for you. I'm going to show you how I draw patterns for these Mexican loop full skirt style cowboy holsters. Now in this case I'm also going to show you how to pattern for a cross draw carry as well, and how I make these mini cap gun rigs and the marketing potential that you may not have realized for these. The nice thing about this particular build is you can take the same techniques for a small cap gun holster and make a large full-size single action holster as well. So let me take you through the construction steps. Tips and tricks will be included as usual, some very unusual, and I think that we need to go ahead and get started. So let's do this. So I grew up in the 1950s, and like everybody else of that generation, we all sported a pair of Fanner 50s on our hips while we rode the range with our television heroes, Roy Rogers, Cisco Kid, Gene Autry, etc. And I think that's where it all started for me. But anyway, I draw my cap gun holsters to the style of the 1880s. And it's a fun way for me to express myself from those days gone by. But anyway, I'm also going to provide you with some sources on where you can buy some cap pistols today. And with everything else that I'm going to share with you, I hope it's worth your time. So let's go ahead and jump right in, because everything is easy once you know how. So let me show you. All right, let me demonstrate my method of drawing a pattern for this particular full skirt size holster, cowboy style, and it starts with cardstock. So what I am using today is an American West Sterling die-cast cap pistol made in Italy. I'll tell you some more later on how you can get these. So the very first thing I do is I take my cardstock and I draw two lines 3/8 of an inch apart. Now this is for the cap pistol, so everything that you do for a full-size single action, you have to adjust the distance here. For example, this would be for this particular holster, 4 or 5 ounce, again larger for 8 to 11 ounce. But anyway, we're going to place the cap pistol right on this inside line. This outside line is your fold line. So normally people will do this. All that does is eliminate that step so you can put it there correctly. Trace that out, and once I have this traced out in this configuration, I'll go to my computer and I will print up 2-3 more of these because it may take 2 or 3 times to get this pattern down. So the very first thing I'm going to do is give myself some guidelines. And at the bottom of the muzzle, I'm going to go a full 1/8 of an inch. I'm going to use all these lines here, and I'm going to give myself just a guideline. At the end of the trigger housing, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go about a 1/2 inch, 1/2 inch or so. Yeah, that should work. And again, a guideline. From the barrel, in this particular case, I'm going to do, let's do 3/4 of an inch. And give myself another guideline. Now I'm going to take a 3.5 inch clear Westcott circular template, and I am going to, from the trigger housing to this 1/2 inch line, I'm just going to give myself a little bit of a curved line here. And you'll see how this will start looking like a holster. At the top of the cylinder is right about here. And I want to make sure that this covers the cylinder. But because it's kind of an old-timey style Western holster, I'm going to expose a little bit of the trigger. And again, it may not be what the modern standards are, but this is a cap pistol. So let's draw a little line there.
And now what I'd like to do is establish, this is the throat, I'm going to establish the recurve. And in this particular case, I'm going to come here and all of this is just sort of building to the point where I might adjust a line here or there. Now we need to connect these two lines. A good way to do that is with a French curve or this template. And I'm going to use a pen here so you can see the lines a little bit better. And we'll just connect those like that. All right. So now I don't usually, in all of my holsters, have a very deep recurve. I kind of like them about this style, and that's just me. You can do your own. And here at the tip, I'm going to soften that point a little bit. And I'm going to come down here and just draw. Just soften that a little bit. It's starting to look like a holster. Still need a little bit of work. And down here, I want to taper that in a little bit. So I'm just going to use an assortment of washers to help me draw these lines in. I'll use a smaller one here. And again, you might have to draw this 2 or 3 times to get it to where it looks good for you. Okay, that is actually looking pretty good. Now here, right here across from the top of the cylinder, I'm just going to do a very, very light curved line like that. That, to me, looks pretty good. Now, I'm going to take a second here and draw in or darken in the holster body so that I can evaluate it again. And I'll just try to do this as neat as I can. And at any certain point here that you don't like something, just change it. All right, that's my holster body. I'm okay with that. Actually, yeah, that looks pretty good. I mean, I could soften that a little bit more, but I think we're okay with this build. So now what we want to do is we want to take our razor knife and from the center line, from the pattern itself, I'm just going to cut and split that line. And if you've seen my knife sheath school videos, seems like this is something I do a lot of. All right, now we're going to cut out the holster body. And again, just try to split that ink line as best you can. And if you have any lines here that may not be to your liking, just use the knife and clean up those lines a little bit. All right, now we have the body of that. Now I'm going to take a paper creaser, and this doesn't cut the paper. Again, this is cardstock. It just gives it a nice little crease line so you can fold that. Okay. And I'm just going to work the pattern a little bit to get that to fold. Now, I'm going to fold this in. This is the pattern side. I'm going to fold it in and give myself a mirrored image. And I will trace this or outline this exactly. Okay. And the whole time you're evaluating this, you want to make sure that everything is pleasing to what you want. Now I'm going to determine the fold line, and on this little holster, the fold line is very close to the top of the throat. So I will do a 1/4 inch line at the top here. So again, make sure everything's in line. I'm just going to run it here to the end of this recurve area. Okay, and I'm going to take that recurve area. I'm going to run this all the way up to the top. Okay, so now we are going to use a 2.5 inch back flap area. And in order to do that, I'm going to use my Picket Master Pro, and I'm going to find the center of this part right here. And that's how quick that tool makes that job. I'm just going to draw a little bit of a line here so that I know. So for a 2.5 inch turn back here, I'm going to go 1.25 inches on each side of that line. Draw a little tick there. And then we have that. All right, so now I'm going to transition from this point here to the area of that recurve. And I'm just going to use this one here. Give that a little soft transition. And over here, I use a smaller washer. These really come in handy for me. And I will go from that line okay. Again, so far I'm happy with how this looks. Now you're going to take your knife of choice and you're going to cut the body out of this from this point. So from the top of the turn back, try to be very careful and split that line. Make sure it's as perfect as you can get it. Okay, and then we're going to cut out this little corner here. That was a little choppy, but we can clean it up. All right, that is our base of our holster. We're going to take another 8.5 by 11 piece of cardstock, and we're going to work now on getting our full flap on this Mexican single loop holster. So you place that down there and you trace this out again. And this may seem unorthodox, but stick around here. You'll start seeing a holster shape with a full flap develop. Okay, now we have that. Now you're going to take this body with this part on there, of course, and we're just going to fold it into itself as a right-hand holster. Crease it a little bit more, and then just flip it. Match up those lines. Hold that holster body down, because remember, this is not your full flap or your back flap. This is the shape of the holster itself. All right, now I'm going to label this as VG1. And the reason I do that is because if I have to do a second pattern, I'll at least know that these are together. So now we have that, and now here's something you have to think about when we draw in this the extra width, and that is on these holsters. If you'll notice on this one, I have enough room with this pattern, this back flap, to do a decorative stitch line if I want. I have enough room if I want to do a border stamp on this one. If I want to set some spots in there to get a little bit fancier, kind of a Roy Rogers look, then this back panel will have to be a little bit wider to accept whatever size spots that you want. Take that into consideration. Now I'm going to take this part right here, and I'm going to go just about a 1/4 inch. That's how my flap's going to be. And give yourself a few guidelines. I hope I'm in. And then about a 1/4 inch here. All right. So now we have basically a blocked area to work with. And in this particular corner, I'm going to use, I think this is 5/8 inch. It's a craft tool corner cutter, or yeah, I think that's what it's called. And I'm just going to use that right there. And that's going to give me that corner. Now over here, I will probably use this one, maybe a little bit larger. Just something that looks pleasing to me. And over here, so that we have a nice little transition. There we go, that looks good. Now here, you can use a French curve on this next step, or you can freehand it. And let me show you how I'm gonna do that. So from this edge right here, I'm going to come down, and I'm going to turn in a little bit and meet up with that line. You can again dress that up however you need. So that is our back flap. This inside is our holster body. Now we're going to determine where our slot is going to go. And if you'll notice on my knife sheaths and holsters, I always use an external piece as my slot. I have found through the years that they last longer if it's just a couple of slits cut into the leather where the holster is weaved through the body. Eventually that's going to weaken and give way. So this prevents that, and that's how I do it. So if you want slits, you cut yourself some slits. I'm going to locate the positioning of my slots and using the holster part. And I think I'm going to use another one of these type of straps. So that's a 1/2 inch. So I will take a 1/2 inch and I will mark it there. And now that looks good, looks balanced. It looks like it's in a good location. So now I'm just going to take my 1/2 inch craft tool, and on this straightaway here, and let's see if I can explain this. So this is the holster body part. We don't want these slots on the outside so that when you're looking down onto the holster, you don't want to see those slots. So you're going to go in about a 1/4 inch. I usually guesstimate that. Now this one here has a little bit of a angle. You don't necessarily want to follow the exact angle, but just give yourself just a little bit of an angle. All right, that is your pattern for your 90-degree holster. We're going to cut that out eventually, and we're going to place that onto the leather and build the holster. So now is the opportunity to clean this up a little bit. Find, you know, whatever tool works for you. In this case, a smaller washer, and just clean that up. That one looks pretty good. And we shall prepare now to show you how you take the same exact concept and you make a cross-draw backstrap. So now what I would do is, once I'm completely satisfied with this pattern, I would take this to my copier and I would make a permanent pattern copy. To make your cross-draw, I'm just going to take this part here and cut it out. So I'm cutting out the full strap, or the back strap. And I'm just going to clean that up a little bit, go a little bit softer. And I'm going to come inside that line a little bit. And again, this is your artistic interpretation. All right, now we have that. And you'll notice there's a lot of patterning going on here. And once you get it down and you have the pattern, then you know the rest is easy. And I'm going to go to a little bit larger pattern. I'm going to grab, and I'm going to go ahead and mark this so that I know. This is also BG1. I'm going to take this. Now this is for the cross draw. So we have to draw basically the same holster body. All right. Remember, you want to clean that up a little bit. I've sort of squiggled that line a little bit. All right. Now all you have to do to get that 45 degree is this. You take your back piece and you fold it in, or you line it up like this. And obviously the more extreme that you turn this, the more of a 45 degree cross draw you'll have. So I'm going to go ahead and might as well leave it there. And then you draw this back piece in. And you don't have to draw this in. It just gives me sort of a guide. Cut your slots, and then it's just a matter of connecting these two lines with a little bit of a swell there. So that'll give me the swell. And then that is your holster for a Crossdraw. That is the holster for your Crossdraw, and that's as simple as it gets. I hope this patterning process was easily digest. It is something that I've made to try to make my life a little bit easier. And let's press on to the very next step, and that will be to put this on leather and get the build done. So we have our Crossdraw, and we're going to go ahead and cut that out, obviously. But the two pattern pieces that you used originally to draw, all you have to do is connect the pattern pieces like that and tape it together. And this is how you get your 90-degree carry. Obviously, you flip it over onto the leather for a left-handed holster. And so let's go ahead and do that and get the leather. I'll talk to you about what leather I used and some fabrication techniques, and then show you how I designed this belt and how you can market it. So let's talk about that in the next clip. So if you like what you've seen so far, do me a favor, subscribe to my channel, give me a thumbs up, leave a comment. Those are the things that help my channel, and if you want to do that, I would appreciate it. So let's get on to the fabrication steps and let's build this. Let's talk about the leather for the fabrication of these cap gun rigs. And what I use is Tandy Leather has a pre-dyed 4 to 6 ounce economy double shoulder. So these leathers are actually very nice for these cap gun rigs, and they have a very clean back, and I like it for this rig, and that's what I used. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to take our pattern and we're going to lay it on the leather of your choice. Again, veg tan 4 to 6, and trace it out and then cut it out. So I've already done a couple of steps to shorten this video a little bit because the primary purpose was to show you the patterning process. So the first thing I do is I will sand the edges a little bit if I didn't cut it perfectly clean. Excuse me. And then I go ahead and edge top and bottom the full skirt inside here and then down at the bottom. Don't do anything here because we're going to put that together in the seam and we're going to clean it up after we sew it. So I went ahead and did that. Now one of the tricks that I wanted to show you for these thinner leathers is I use a felt wheel from the Dremel aisle and I load it up with wax and it develops a groove in there. And this allows me on the thinner leather to get a nice little edge. It's a handy tool to have. It is also very nice for these really tight inside curves. Okay, so one thing I wanted to show you too is on these really tight inside curves, a lot of people will use like a number 2 X-Acto blade to cut that out. To be honest with you, through the years, my hands have just been giving me a lot of trouble. So let me show you how I use, and I apologize for sniffling, how I use a chiseled screwdriver to help me navigate through these really tight curves without messing it up every single time. Obviously, these soft outside curves, inside curves are easy to cut with the knife of your choice. But I take my chiseled screwdriver and I basically will use it like a P38. Okay, you get the idea, and it's actually a very nice little cut. If you have trouble with these really tight corners and stuff, of course you can use a round punch to help you, but this is kind of an awkward shape. So anyway, think about that if you're having trouble with those areas. Cut that out, and let's go ahead and talk about the next step. We're now at the blank canvas stage. It's ready for you to decorate however you want, and if you need some inspiration, This Cowboy Gunfighter and Cap Pistols book is really a great source, especially for me who likes this kind of stuff. Anyway, look through those if you have an opportunity to buy that book. If not, Packing Iron is loaded with inspiration. So anyway, think about that. And now we're going to move on to the next step. Now I'm going to show you how I build my loop straps for these. So this is a different version. Let me show you real quickly how to do that. So on this one, I just take a patterning and I 3/4 of an inch with a swell in the middle. That gives me that concept. This is what I use for that, as you can see. So what I like to do is add a little background window in there. So I take an exotic, what just fell? Anyway, I take an exotic and I punch a circle out of that and I just put it over that and it gives me a nice little background window. I center this, press it, indicate my hole, and then I'll show you that in another step. I'll show you the single strap with the rectangle center bar buckle. Let me show you how I do that real quick. And so on this one here, this is a 1/2 inch, and this is the look it will give you. And in this case, it's oversized. I punch a point on the front and a rounded end on the back. I punch in 2 holes to accept the rivet and the oblong punch for this. Now let me show you how I set this up. Just take my anvil here and my rivet, and I'm going to go ahead and so I've already, before I do that, let me just show you on these thin straps, very challenging sometimes to burnish. So I take one of these sheet benders from Harbor Freight and I place it in there, take my edge solution, take my handy dandy little felt wheel, and this gives me a lot of control. And then I just take it and I move it down and rinse and repeat. Okay. And then I will take my buckle, make sure the tongue is in the right position because I always mess that up. Place it in the slot. And take my rivet. This is a decorative rivet, has a little star on it. Rivet cap, and I use the number 3 setter for a size 14 copper rivet as a domed setter. Oops, get something on my anvil there. And that gives you the domed effect. Then you establish where you want your buckle hole. That's too large, make it correct, and put it in there. And I have about that much sticking out. And then once I have that, then I just cut it right in the middle. And we'll show you how we set that up in a bit. Let's continue fabricating. So we are at the stage now where I've established my stitch line with the wing dividers, and I am going to hand sew that. I'm not going to show you that step. If you have a sewing machine, a class 26 or equivalent is perfect. Size 138 thread, 21 inch, or I'm sorry, with a number 21 needle. So I am just going to, at the very corner here, start my stitch line, and I'm going to run through this very quickly. Okay, I'm going to take 0.08 thread, hand sew that real quick, and we'll be right back with that seam folded over. Actually, let me just show you one more thing that I do, and that is so that I know where to set my glue line. I will fold that over, and I work with a mirrored edge. You can always extend the pattern a little bit on this side so that you can trim afterwards. I just find that this works for me. Give myself a little indicator dot. I'm gonna take my wing dividers and I'm gonna give myself a glue line indicator. Now I'm using Renya Aqualim 315 and a little brush. And the nice thing about this Aqualim is water-based. And after I draw my glue line on here, I can put this in a bucket of water and use it for the next time. Okay, I'll go ahead and finish gluing both of them up. And I'm gonna set the seam and sew it, and I'll be back. As a kid, I never colored inside the lines, and since I became a leather worker, I always do. I don't like glue inside. Now I'm just gonna take this. It's very simple to match the holster to the edge because your pattern was cut perfectly. And if you're off by 1/64 of an inch, an 80 grip flat wheel sander will make short work of that. Okay, I'll let that cure, and I'll punch those holes through to the back side, and then we'll have it sewed when we get back, and we're pressing on. All right, sewn, took 5 minutes. So now what we're gonna do is we're going to tap the stitches flat on your mirrored convex hammered head, make sure all the wax is off. Whether you machine or hand sew, tapping the stitches flat is fine. Looks like we have a nice, nice fit. Let's take it over to the flap wheel sander and clean that edge up, edge it, and I'll show you one more step before we assemble the slot. I like using flap wheel sanders. They make short work of this main seam sanding. Okay, let's edge it. All right, now we are going to burnish that. All right, back when they used to sell these in Coca-Cola, I bought 4 of them and rat tail filed them to different sizes and put a washer on each end. I think they still sell the wooden ones today. You can make that as well for your burnishing wheel. All right, let's go ahead and burnish this. Okay, I'm gonna apply a little dark stain on there, a little dye, reburnish it, and let's take you back to the bench and put this together. Let's go ahead and put our single loop onto the full skirt, and let me show you how I do it. So you do the same thing with this one here, except it's 3/4 of an inch. Obviously the slots would have to be large enough to accept that, but the concept is identical. So I moisten this a little bit, and what I like to do while it's moist and the edges have been burnished, I'll take my wing dividers and in between the stitch line and the edge of the holster, I press as firm as I can to get that nice crease. You don't need a lot of tools to do this, especially for a handgun pistol. Okay, and then I just take it and I go on the thread side. Or I'm sorry, on the other side of the thread. And for a plain holster, that dresses it up a little bit, highlighting the stitch line. Now put your cap gun into the holster. Now you don't want to mold this. You want the holster just to sit like that. So now what we're going to do is we're going to fold this in, and you see how those match up, and squeeze that back a little bit. And you see how you get that 45-degree angle. And also, if you look at the face of the sheath, you don't see the slots on each side of that. That's what you want. So let's go ahead and take this and put this however you want. A little bit of moisture. Now we're just gonna put this into the slots, and you want that snug. Make sure I'm in camera. Put both sides in, and you start pulling it even. Need a little bit more over here, and just pull them. Okay, I'm happy with that position, and it's nice to have those tight in there so they don't flop around. Now I'm going to do is I'm going to lay this across here. I'm going to get my WIS W7Ts, make great industrial shears, and just start generally getting this down to size. That'll work for me. Go ahead and take these now and just round them off a little bit. Okay, so now you have the size, so you can technically take that out and know exactly what size you want. So I'm gonna lay that across there, pull that snug with the gun in the holster, and I'm going to take a very sharp point. I'm gonna find a relative center, and I'm just gonna push through all three. So I have a mark on them, and there we go. Let's go ahead and take it out, make it a little bit easier on ourselves. Now we take a hole punch, and right there where that mark was given to you, push a hole through that and through each one of these holes. Okay, now I'm going to, I don't have to put the holster back in at the moment. Just make sure that this is the way it should go. Place that in there. And then on the back, run a number 14 copper rivet, head side on the inside of that skirt. And just figure out which strap you want on top. It doesn't really matter. Okay, now we have it in that position. And let's go ahead and take it over to an anvil that I use to set these. Now I found this old boat anchor cleat that works great for this particular function and others, but all I do is I set that on there, take my burr, set that, take my number 1 setter, okay, you don't want to smash that too hard, and I just take the burr from a number 9 rivet, I set it on top of there, and I trim that off. Gives me just enough space there. And I take my number 2, Okay, let's take that back to the bench and keep going. We're gonna have to button up this video a little bit, so let's quickly talk about the belt itself. The belt is a top layer is 4 to 6 ounce, the original leather that I talked about, and the back is 3 ounce, lined and sewn. So this is going to be a presentation rig. It's not gonna fit little Johnny or Jenny. So let me give you some dimensions real quick. It's basically a Ranger belt. So for this presentation rig, for this size of cap pistols, which run a little bit on the smaller size, 25 inches in length. It's just under 2 inches. The front buckle billet is 5.5 inches by 3/4 of an inch. And this here, the buckle billet is 4 inches, including the turn back, and a 3/4 inch fancy little buckle. I got it Weaver, I believe it was. Okay, so build your belt. Again, it has to be a little bit longer if it's going to be worn by a youngster, but in this particular case, it's going to be a presentation rig. Now, let me prep for the final talk about how you can market these and a little bit more about the verbiage on here. All right, so let's not forget to apply a final finish of conditioner. My favorite is Be Natural Care Rudy's. I'm not sponsored. It's a great product. Atom Wax, Leather Sheen, Resinline, whatever you want to do. I personally like this Rudy's. Gives it a nice, rich finish. Then I just take a shearling, rub it in. Do that to your entire rig, and it's just going to be absolutely beautiful. All right. Let's talk about marketability on these items. This is not the 1950s anymore. So this is set up as a presentation rig on a beautiful piece of old barn board, and it's ready to be presented to a retiring sheriff, Border Patrol agent, U.S. Marshal, Arizona Ranger, Texas Ranger, and anybody else in your community that their history is rich in the Western flavor. So, for example, I retired after 23 years from the Pima County Sheriff's Department. It's the same department that Wyatt Earp served in. So we've been serving since 1865, and kind of proud of that fact as well. So let's talk about some behind-the-scenes information with a sheriff's department. Now, Arizona has 15 counties. Texas probably has hundreds, and all of your states probably have as many as well. So the reach of these is very good. So as a recruit in a sheriff's department class, since I have a little background there, at the end of the training cycle, they are required to get together and present the academy staff with a gift. And it's usually, probably 99% of the time, a plaque with their class name on there and their motto. And imagine the staff being presented with something that you made for them. And it could have their class number, their motto, like never give up, never give in, or all kinds of things that you can come up with. And I used old block letters from Tandy's from decades ago to do this. But, you know, if you're talented enough to take different fonts and carve it onto there, and the lasers of today, oh my goodness, the potential for a laser for these things is just mind-boggling to me. And also, if these are fully carved rigs, so I couldn't even begin to imagine how beautiful that would be. So another big organization where these have potential is the cowboy action shooting world. It's all over the world, as a matter of fact. Every state has one. So there you go. If you're not in a Western location, these are overseas and in all 50 states and Canada. So think about the potential. Here's a trophy rig for a top shooter or something. You they have all kinds of categories where these presentations would be absolutely wonderful. And last but not least, here's an old photo of one of the retiring officers in the county. Received one of these plaques. That's me right there trying to look up over their heads. And anyway, I think you get the idea. If somebody has a Western room, this would be great with their family name on here, old saloons, Western festivals, like Tombstone, for example, has Eldorado Days. And that is just crazy huge. So think about what you have available to you. Make these for that. They're a lot of fun to make, and I hope you enjoyed this presentation. Let me give you a couple of sources to get these cap guns today, and we'll talk to you at the conclusion. All right, well, this concludes the video. I hope you enjoyed. I had a great time making these and showing you how I draw and pattern for these Mexican loop full-skirt cowboy style holsters. It doesn't matter if it's for a cap gun or a full-size rig. The drawing concept is all the same. All right, so thank you very much for sticking around, and we'll look forward to the next video.